Hello, welcome to the 9th episode of Taking Names. This is my playthrough of Elden Ring, and we've just done Siofra River, and now we're going into Gael to take down General Radahn. And the first area that I'm doing here is the Gael ruins, and these enemies that blow themselves up, you can just run around there with your horse and they'll just blow themselves up. So pretty easy to get some runes like that. These flame chariots, I've noticed that if you actually hit the guy inside, it does a lot of damage, but if you actually hit the flame chariot itself, it doesn't really do as much damage. So make sure you go around the back there and hit the guy. So if you look around, there's this underground passage here where there is a rather difficult boss fight with two of these mad pumpkin heads. Now we actually did one of these when we went to find Sellia in Limgrave, but now you've got two of them. And it took me a few goes to do this, and I had to get a little bit lucky because I had to make sure they were in the right position. And what I tried to do was have one of those guys protect me from the other one trying to hit me. So as you can see there, I had one in front of the other, and so I think that was the best way to do it. Otherwise they'd both be hitting you at the same time, and they hit pretty hard as well. Make sure you have your lone wolves as well, because if they can distract you, that makes the fight a little bit easier, because he has this big pumpkin head helmets where if you hit that, it's basically his shield. So you want, if you have your lone wolves, you can go around the back of him a little bit easier. But if you're just fighting one of them, they're not too hard because most of his attacks can be rolled through quite easily. So I think there's going to be this bit here where I'm just rolling through his attacks continuously like a rhythm game. But as you can see, you can also block it as well. But I would advise to roll it because it's not too difficult to roll through. But if you only have one of them, they do give you a bit of time to heal up, so you can use your potions and it's not too difficult. But if you have two, it can get a little bit tricky, especially in that very small enclosed space. The next section I wanted to do was the Gael tunnel, because I wanted to find Iron Fist Alexander, who was going to be at the end of this tunnel, and he was going to help us fight General Radahn, so we would be able to summon him at Redmane Castle just before the fight. Now, I wasn't actually able to find him because apparently I'd already done the quest line for Blade, and Blade had already gone to Redmane Castle to start the festivities. So I believe that is why Iron Fist Alexander wasn't at the end of the Gael tunnels. So if you wanted to, you could probably skip this section here, although I do think that there are quite a lot of nice rewards here, lots of nice items like smithing stones and somber smithing stones. This is the boss of this area, Magma Worm, and he is just this big fat lizard that is rather slow, and the only thing you really have to worry about is the lava. So make sure you bring some fire resistant armor. He doesn't really do a whole lot, and you can just block through most of his attacks if you're using a shield, and then you just keep on swiping at him and then he'll go down. And I don't think he flies that much, so you can just stick really close to him. He doesn't really move around that much. Just don't get yourself stuck in a corner and like fight him in the middle here. Once you get stuck in the corner, it's rather hard to get out of it and heal properly, and then you'll probably have to deal with the lava as well. So just a lot of things to deal with if you're stuck. One nice thing that the developers did for Elden Ring is that they usually put a side of grace near the boss fight, and if they don't, it's usually just one or two enemies that you have to take down, and then you can avoid the rest of the enemies. I think that is really cool that they did that, because I remember back playing Demon Souls that you had to take down half the level before you got to the boss fight, and then you would have to do that all over again if you couldn't beat the boss. And honestly, I much prefer it this way, where you can just focus on the boss himself and take him down. So the next thing I wanted to do was go to Sellia, the town of sorcery, but on the way there was this big dragon, and he proved really difficult. In fact, it took me about 45 minutes to take him down. And that was because I didn't have a lot of answers for this Scarlet rot, which as soon as I got it, I pretty much died straight away. and I realized that he doesn't take down all your health. So you can get the Scarlet Rot and then you can heal up, but you got to do it really quickly. You got to be like jamming on that health potion button as soon as you get Scarlet Rot. But sometimes you aren't able to do so because you get it and then you fall down and then he'll stomp on you and kill you that way. So there are a lot of times I died when that Scarlet Rot started, and then I would go into this animation where I would get hit from that Scarlet Rot, and then he would also hit me again and again. So he proved really difficult, and what I tried to do really was just to avoid getting that Scarlet Rot altogether. So as soon as I saw that build up in the Scarlet Rot meter, I tried to run away as quick as I could. Now the reason why it was so difficult was that almost all of his attacks initiate Scarlet Rot in one way or another. So when he stomps down on the ground, you see that big puff of Scarlet Rot's dust. And if you're in that, that can hurt you and you can get Scarlet Rot that way. So many of his attacks will initiate Scarlet Rot. And so, you know, I was trying to hit him around his feet, but then whenever he stomped down on the ground, that would start the Scarlet Rot problem. So what I tried to do was I tried to hit him mostly where his wings were, because that was not near his feet as much, and so he wouldn't stomp down on me and start Scarlet Rot. And also I found that hitting him on the wings, I was able to stagger him a couple of times, or at least take off a large chunk of his health that way. Now he has a couple of really serious attacks, which is this one where he flies, and you can avoid this, you can evade this if you just dash at the right time on your horse. And he also has this Dragon Tail Swipe, which you can also avoid on your horse as well. But that's the one good thing about being on your horse, is that it kind of acts like a shield for you so that you don't die. Now if your horse ever dies, you do have to spend one of your health potions to revitalize your horse and get him back. But that's the good thing, because if you were to use that health potion on yourself, there can be some times where he can one-shot you and you can instantly die. But if you're on the horse and he hits the horse, that kind of acts like your shield. Now when he goes into that animation where he's trying to breathe Scarlet Rot, you can actually use that to your advantage and get close to him if you can. Of course, sometimes it doesn't work, because then he's just going to fly up and then you're going to have to go chase him again. But anytime you're not on your horse, it's best to fight this dragon when you're actually on your horse. And that way you can get around the level a little bit quicker. It took me a while to beat him, but I finally did it. It might have been about 10 goes, maybe 15 goes, but I checked the time on this video and it was about 45 minutes. So he was pretty difficult, but I was pretty happy after I did it. So now it was on to Sellia, the Town of Sorcery, and I really enjoyed this level because it wasn't just about walking around the street area here. It was also a bit of platforming on the rooftops as well, so that was rather surprising and rather cool. Now I think it would have been extra cool to be able to walk inside some of these buildings here, but this town, you're really just walking around the outside. Now there are these doors here that are sealed off, and you're going to have to work out a way to open them up. And the way to do that is to light these flames atop these towers, and you're going to have to get onto the rooftops to do that. So it's a mechanic that's been used before in games, obviously, but what's rather cool here is the platforming, and you're going to have to call your horse, and you're going to have to do platforming with your horse on rooftops, which is pretty wild. I don't think you can make some of those jumps without the horse there. Now once you light up the flame for 3 of those towers, you do end up unsealing 3 areas. But it is the door that is actually closest to the Sellia Crystal Tunnel that contains the boss fight, which is this boss fight right here. This is the Nox Swordstress and Nox Priest. And what I was actually able to do was I used the Lone Wolves, and that ended up separating the 2 bosses. So it made it rather easy that I was able to fight them separately, which is always what you want to do when you have a dual boss fight. So being level 75, I do feel like the bosses are not as tough as what we had earlier on in the game, now that I'm a little bit more over leveled and I've done some farming. So the game is getting a little bit easier when it comes to boss fights. So after completing those 2 bosses there, I went to the Sellia Crystal Tunnel, and the last time I was in here I couldn't actually find the boss fight. So I had to do a little bit more searching around, but eventually I found the platform to jump onto, and I found the boss fight. So this is the Fallingstar Beast, and I'm only showing you about half of the fight because I wanted to keep this video a little bit shorter. I do feel like because there are a lot of bosses that they have a lot of similar moves, so they'll have some charging moves and then they'll have a move where they're trying to hit you left to right or right to left, and they might have some stomps. So a lot of the moves are pretty similar for a lot of the bosses, and a lot of the moves you're trying to roll through them anyways. So after that, it was time to go to Redmane Castle to fight General Radahn, and the way I did it was to go through Fort Gael. And at the top of Fort Gael there is a transporter that will get you across to the other side of that impassable Great Bridge. Now if you watch my other videos, I was actually made all the way down there because I wanted to use that area near the impassable Great Bridge to do a bit of farming. So I already been down there before, but I hadn't been able to get across that Great Bridge. But you can get across there if you use that transporter from Fort Gael. And so you've got to climb up this ladder at the back of the castle. Now the interesting thing here is that the castle is going to be empty, and I think that if you didn't actually start Ranni's questline, then the Redmane Castle would actually be full of enemies, but I never got to see that, so I'm not sure if that's the case. But there are only these 2 Lion Guardians that are on the ground level. And the easiest way is to just stand on top of that platform there and then just shoot some arrows until you feel like you're confident enough to take them down with melee, and then you just jump in and then just finish him off with a few hits. So there's not much here in Redmane Castle, so all that's left to do is to do the final showdown, and that is to take down General Radahn. And honestly, I was a little bit disappointed because I'd heard a lot of things about this fight. I'd heard that he was pretty tough in the initial version of the game before he got a little bit nerfed in the second or the first revision, and then in the 1.03 update, the one that I'm playing now, he got rebuffed a little bit. But as you will see, if you're over leveled, I don't think he is that much of a challenge. And honestly, I gotta say that it was a little bit anticlimactic to fight him. Now the first couple of times I actually had no idea you had to press the Y button to summon your friends to go into battle with you. As you can see, there is Iron Fist Alexander walking up to the fight, which is pretty cute. Now General Radahn, he has very similar attacks to a lot of the other bosses, and that big strike attack is so telegraphed that you know exactly where he's going to land, and then you can just run straight up to him. And then again, that area attack with the lightning is something you just gotta like run away from. And they also let you use the horse as well, which I'm really surprised because that easily lets you evade a lot of the attacks rather quickly. Now once you have his health down 50%, he actually comes back in a comet, and he actually killed me the second time around where he actually hit me as the comet and I died instantly. So you got to run away from that a little bit. But I also heard that if you stood near the edge as he was coming in as the comet, that he would actually fly over you and drown in the ocean or kill himself. But I never actually got that to work. I tried a couple of times and then realized I couldn't be bothered trying to find the exact spot where that would happen. So I decided to just kill him. But you saw there, I just took off a huge chunk of health, and he went down pretty quickly after that second phase initiated. And that was the entire boss fight. That took all of 2 minutes, so I would say that was almost a little bit anticlimactic, especially given that I was really waiting for this boss fight ever since the start of the game. But that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching my series on Elden Ring. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to this channel. And we'll have more Elden Ring content coming very shortly. So I'll see you guys in the next video.